quality public charter school. We are the ones to recite the Abraham Lincoln House Divided speech.
And we will be performing a House Divided.
House Divided speech, June 16th, 1858.
A house divided against itself.
A house divided against itself.
A house divided against itself cannot stand.
Abraham Lincoln's House Divided speech is one of his most remembered and performed speeches today. It addressed many issues that the United States was going through at the time. When he gave his speech, tensions were very high in the United States. The issue of slavery was tearing apart the North and the South, and it seemed like the Union was on the brink of a civil war. The U.S. government was very divided on this issue. It was around this time that Abraham Lincoln had accepted the Illinois Republican Party's nomination to be that state senator. On June 16, 1858, in the Illinois state capitol in Springfield, Lincoln gave his House Divided speech. Lincoln believed that the Union was going to become either a slave nation or a free nation, and he thought that the government was going to fail if it stayed divided. His core message was that a house divided against itself cannot stand.
Lincoln speaks ardently and earnestly when he discusses how the government will cease to be divided and will become either for slavery or against slavery. However, he keeps his diplomatic tone throughout the speech.
A house divided against itself cannot stand. I believe this government cannot endure permanently half slave and half free. I do not expect the Union to be dissolved. I do not expect the house to fall. But I do expect that it will cease to be divided. It will become all one thing or all the other.
He uses very formal and serious language throughout the speech. This helps show just how important the issue of slavery was to him, and it makes everything he says carry great weight and importance.
Lincoln uses interrogatio, a rhetorical question where the answer is self-evident, as the lead-in to the main point of his speech.
Have we no tendency to the latter condition?
The question, have we no tendency to the latter condition, asks if the Union was leaning toward becoming a slave country. The fact that this question is rhetorical shows that Lincoln thought this was true.
Lincoln uses logos, logic-based arguments many times in his speech. He uses the Dred Scott case and Nebraska-Kansas Act, two political acts that allowed slavery to continue, to convince his audience that the United States has a tendency towards slavery. Lincoln uses pathos, rhetorical devices that appeal to the emotions, effectively in his speech. He uses words such as crisis, slavery agitation, slavery, perverted, and roar of loose declamation to stir up emotions in his audience. His main message, a house divided against itself cannot stand, also appeals to emotions because it creates a sense of urgency to fix the division.
One of the counter-arguments Lincoln addresses is that people are doubtful of abolishing slavery. He backs up his claims that slavery should be abolished by explaining the Dred Scott case and the laws found in the Nebraska Bill. This is effective because Lincoln addresses both sides and explains why he believes that slavery is wrong and should be abolished via the use of evidence. Lincoln does acknowledge the opposition during this speech, being that the South believed that slaves were not citizens of the United States and were, instead, property. However, he does not concede to this point, and instead refutes this by questioning the legitimacy of their arguments. He also diffuses their claim that slaves are below them by proving, through logical progression, that this is a result of some sort of corruption and is morally wrong.
Near the end of the speech, Lincoln uses aporia, a feigned statement of doubt about how the speaker should act, when he asks how the Union could best end slavery.
To meet and overthrow that dynasty is the work before all those who would prevent that consummation. That is what we have to do. How can we best do it?
When he asks, how can we best do it, he gets his audience to think about the question of ending slavery, and he gets them to want to end slavery. Finally, Lincoln uses germinatio, the act of repeating a word or word group, in his closing statements when he says, "We shall not fail. If we stand firm, we shall not fail."
Lincoln's speech was very effective overall. It started out as an explanation of why the Union was in danger of becoming a slave nation, and all of the real-world examples of why it was likely. Then, the speech shifted to a criticism of the Nebraska Doctrine and its allowance of people to have slaves in non-slave states. Finally, it shifted to a rallying cry for Republicans to work together to stop slavery. All of these points brought the American people to Lincoln's side. The American people may have been against abolishing slavery, but Lincoln made some very valid points in order to persuade them that remaining one united country was more important than keeping slavery.
A house divided against itself cannot stand.
A house divided against itself cannot stand.
A house divided against itself cannot stand. A house divided against itself cannot stand.